Hi, I'm Jenine Lillian. I'm an actually autistic neurodiversity consultant and educator. April is Autism Awareness Month, and I wanted to circle back on my busy calendar to record this video for you. I had done a live presentation for the British Columbia People First Society members and audience about going beyond awareness, why World Autism Acceptance Day matters. And this is delivered from both an evidence-based perspective as well as lived experience. So I hope that you learn something new and find new ways to be inclusive and supportive of the autists around you. Let's get into it. Beyond Awareness, Why World Autism Acceptance Day Matters. By me, Jenine Lillian. This is what I look like when I'm being silly and I have autistic joy. I am a neurodiversity consultant, educator, librarian, advocate, writer, and artist, and I live in the West Kootenays in British Columbia, Canada, where I can usually be found making art, talking with folks on sidewalks, birdwatching, and practicing self-care. Hello, I'm Jenine. I'm autistic. These two sentences have been true the entirety of my life, but I didn't know until 2 years ago that I've actually been autistic my whole life, and I didn't have any idea that that was why I struggled with the things I struggled with, and that was why I have the talents and skills that I have in my special brain, as I call it, and my big heart. One of the things that's really difficult as being an autistic individual is that you often feel very alien on Earth and you feel very outside of what you quote unquote should be doing. A lot of the social norms and customs and small talk and talking about the weather and your vacation and any exciting plans, they just don't really connect with most autists. And so we struggle even on the most basic level when usually we really want to connect with others. So that's part of the reason why I do this work, to help folks understand that we're not trying to be difficult, we find it difficult. Temple Grandin has a lot of great quotes, but this one I really like. If I could snap my fingers and be non-autistic, I would not. Autism is part of what I am. And I like this especially because I feel this very strongly myself, that autism is part of what I am, but I don't think of it as part of who I am. That's a fine distinction to make, but it really makes me who I am, but it's also part of the mixture of many things that make me who I am. So it's an integral part of what I am. And I like the fact that she said it this way. Awareness isn't enough. Awareness moves to understanding, moves to acceptance, and moves to inclusion. And the pivot points between each of these concepts is action. Personal action, collective action, community action. We don't need more people to know autism exists. We need understanding, acceptance, and inclusion. This quote from Nick Walker, who's an autistic academic, researcher, and advocate, really helps us to understand the basic foundational definition of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is a natural, healthy, and important form of human biodiversity, a fundamental and vital characteristic of the human species, a crucial source of evolutionary and creative potential. Autism is not rare. Autistic adults in North America, here are some statistics for you. Approximately 1 to 2% of adults are autistic. That means roughly 6 to 8+ million autistic adults across Canada and the US. I found these statistics quite stunning because I don't feel that I'm part of that large group of individuals. However, you need to note that these figures are based on diagnosed adults, not including self-diagnosed or youth. Still, I think a lot of us would say autism is pretty rare, but it turns out it's not, and we're hearing about it in neurodiversity of all kinds more and more. For those of you who might not know, I wanted to make a sort of cheat sheet about what autism is and what it is not. We hear a lot about what it is not, but we hear it couched in a lot of fear and a lot of worry and concern. So autism, what it is. Autism is a natural variation in brain wiring that affects how a person experiences the world. Sensory processing differences are common, Communication styles vary. Autism is a birth-to-death condition. Autism, what it is not. Not caused by vaccines. Not just a childhood condition. Not limited to boys. Not a linear spectrum from mild to severe. Not everyone is, quote, on the spectrum, end quote. It is not a disease that needs to be cured. Stephen Shore has a great quote for us that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. We all present differently, and with the dozens of autists that I've had conversations with, even we have a great variation in how we present, how we move through the day, what we find difficult, what we find easy, and what we take joy in. It's important to know that we are all unique, and that makes part of the issue for diagnosing. Autistic ways of thinking bring value, and this is something that we don't hear a lot about. If you're autistic, you have these assets: deep focus and sustained attention, pattern recognition, detail-oriented, strong sense of justice and integrity, creative problem solving and innovation, honesty and direct communication. One of the most important things that any individual or collective group can do is to challenge the harmful myths and misconceptions about autism. Autism is not misunderstood because information is missing. It's misunderstood because dominant narratives are outdated. Autism is not a defect. It is a natural variation of the human brain. We need to shift these dominant narratives to view and discuss autism as neurodevelopmental variation and part of human diversity, and shift these dominant narratives about the scientific framing of autism, that there is a genetic basis, and that neurological differences are not defects. Common myths that are still shaping our systems and experiences include, but are not limited to, autism looks one way, a savant, male, etc. Autism is only a childhood condition. Autism is caused by vaccines. Autistic people lack empathy. Success means no support is needed. Autism should be fixed or overcome. Support is only for those in visible crisis. This is really difficult for me to even just read these words aloud because I vehemently oppose them and feel very attacked by them when people present them to me. Myths don't just misinform, they shape systems, treatment, and outcomes, and myths actively harm autistic people. So if you really want to be supportive and inclusive, you can make sure that you're never sharing information that are couched in these dominant narratives. Paul Collins has a great quote for us to keep in mind. If you're autistic yourself, you'll probably resonate with this, and if you're not, you might not be aware of how difficult it can be to navigate the world as an autist. Autists are the ultimate square pegs, and the problem with pounding a square peg into a round hole is not that the hammering is hard work, it's that you're destroying the peg. The reality of autism versus those myths. Autism is diverse, often invisible, and frequently masked. Many autistic people experience deep empathy and insight. External success can come at a significant internal cost. Late diagnosis is the growing norm. Differences are not deficits. Support needs are real, even when they're not obvious. Practical ways to support autistic people. Accept different communication styles. Give clear and direct instructions. Avoid vague language or sarcasm. Respect personal boundaries. Be mindful of sensory needs. Offer quiet or low stimulation options. Allow stimming. Offer flexibility in participation, chat, camera off, etc. I wanted to let you know that I have resources available to anyone who thinks they're autistic or who wants to make a difference in the neurodiversity sphere. BC People First Society is a self-advocacy group based in Vancouver, BC. Please check them out at bcpeoplefirst.com and on Facebook, BC People First. You can see lots of articles by self-advocates, and you can get involved in the events and protests that are planned throughout the year. I created the Neurodivergent Network on School, and this is a free community for neurodivergent adults of any diagnostic status or identity. We focus on community, empowerment, wellness, and success. Caboose is an app that's out of Australia, made by neurodivergent folks for neurodivergent folks. You can get the app wherever you get your usual apps, and you can also go to their YouTube channel at Caboose HQ to view a lot of recently added content that used to be only available for paid subscription. So there's some great interviews with neurodivergent adults such as myself and some other advocates in the community that you might really benefit from watching. If you are a neurodivergent adult who has a formally diagnosed neurodivergent condition or more than one, and you'd like to share your diagnosis journey and your story, please reach out to me at stories@JanineLillian.com. This is a passion project that I have on YouTube, and we're in our second season. We usually laugh and share some painful truths and also some really awesome tips. So I hope that if you are willing to share your diagnostic journey, that you'll reach out and we'll book a session. Thank you so much for being aware of autism and for taking any action you can to move our global community from awareness to acceptance. Please reach out anytime and let me know what you thought of this video or the resources, or to collaborate. I'm Jenine Lillian.